So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was son of Wonder Woman of different dimension. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Another dimension. Diana asked the Batman. They, along with the other members of the Justice League, were seated around a table in the shape of a horseshoe. At the center was a space for a hologram. From the left to the right, there was the Flash, Hal Jordan, and John Stewart, the Green Lanterns, Red Tornado, Captain Atom, Green Arrow, Shazam, with Batman standing next to him. After the Dark Knight was Martian Manhunter, then the Superman, Wonder Woman, the Black Canary, Hawkgirl, Hawkman, Aquaman, and Zatara. They were all just called in for a meeting by Batman, claiming it was the utmost importance. Actually, there is several dimensions and planes of reality, but ours is starting to open up to this one specifically. He explained with a hardened face, we need to look into this and soon in order to determine if this is or isn't a threat. As always, he will always be cautious about anything that could be harmful to the Earth. Even today, he will not take any chances with anything. Superman decided to speak up. What do you think could be on the other side? He questioned. This could be like the Phantom Zone with several super villains. Batman pulled up an image of a smaller Batwing on the holograms. Have already sent a probe there. He states to them all, it is similar to our Earth, but unlike ours. The majority of the population has supernatural abilities, being able to stand on any surface, using nature's elements, and several others. This begins to worry the others. Only a all percent of Earth's population were metahumans, and most of the time, it was an accident. But this world was filled with metahumans. They were everywhere, and this could mean something bad. So what are we gonna do? Captain Marvel asked in an uncommonly serious voice in comparison to his usually happy voice. Even though he's technically 10 years old, he still had the wisdom of Solomon and knew when the jokes were over and when he needed to be serious. Batman continued. There is a small rift opening in the Okayama Prefecture, Japan. It is big enough for 2 individuals to fit through. I'll have 2 leaguers enter and see what's happening. Luckily, this opening can be forced open and closed, so we will set up a quarantine in that area, where other members of the league will keep watch. I plan on going myself. They seem to speak a dialect of Japanese, but who will be the second member? Wonder Woman was the first to raise her hand before speaking. I have no problem entering this dimension. I am one of the stronger members and can take most damage if they attack, and I can return to the rift at any time. The others agreed with this, making sense with what she said. In that case, let's prepare. Batman continued. Me and Wonder Woman will enter the rift in an hour. Once we do, set a perimeter and put the land on quarantine to be safe. We should be back in a matter of months. Dismissed. 1 hour later, both Wonder Woman and Batman stood at the entrance of the dimensional rift. It was pure white and blinding, and they could barely keep their eyes open. Diana and Bruce Liu came behind them and give them a look of certainty. We will get to the bottom of this, she says. And with that, they enter the rift. When the light faded, they found themselves in a lush forest with tall trees that could give Redwood a run for their money. Wonder Woman took in the amazing sight. There were very few places with such fresh air and the essence of nature itself. Batman was also curious about the natural aura in the air. Ivy would have a field day here. As he continued, he also felt unnerved, as if something was watching them. Whatever was doing a good job, because he only had a feeling. And he couldn't detect anything. It kept him on guard. As they continued forward, they ended up on a road. They begin walking up it. After walking for a short while, they end up in front of a great red gate that was roughly 50 meters tall. It had a weird symbol that looked similar to a leaf or kunai. At the front was 2 guards. Looking to each other, they turned to the men at the gates, walking towards them. Time skip. 5 months. Aw man, I told you we would be last. Kid Flash exclaimed to his mentor. Flash looked at him sheepishly before turning to the other heroes and their protoges as Robin spoke. Today's the day, huh guys? Yeah, Kid Flash replied. This must be the first time us sidekicks are all he. Don't call us sidekicks, Speedy interrupted, not after today. After that statement, they continued to walk past the reporters and citizens. ignoring their statements about them as they continued to small talk. Sorry, I guess I'm just overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed, Ice is underwhelmed. Why can't people just be whelmed for once? Robin said randomly, until he saw the statues off the original 7 before the hall. I guess that's why. The others silently agreed with him. They walk inside the hall and see Martine waiting for them. Welcome to the hall, Flash told them as they walked further in. Make yourselves comfortable as we have a briefing over the recent attacks. He then turned to the other leaders before turning to the Zeta tubes to get scanned. That's it, Speedy cried out in outburst. I was expecting more than a glorified backstage pass. Batman coolly replied, you 4 are accessed where few have ever been allowed to go. But before anyone else could say anything, the Zeta tubes lit up and out came 2 female teenagers. The first one OD at 5 feet 6 with short black hair and hypnotizing blood-red eyes. She wore a green vest with a mesh shirt underneath. She had black plants that stopped at her shins. Her right thigh was bandaged in. At her back was a small pouch with TWK scrolls above it. On her hips were small holsters for her knuckle blades. The girl showed determination and desire to prove herself. Right next to her was a shorter girl at 5'4" with black hair and red highlights. Her clothes matched her hair color, being a black and red sailor outfit that showed her toned stomach and legs. On her hip, she had a red and purple scissors. She looked the opposite of her partner, looking ready to take on the world. Hey, I can't wait to see Satsuki's face when she sees me one-shot everyone in the exam. The shorter one boasted, which gained her an amused expression from her. Oh why, so you can show her what she already did. Oh shut up, really, Speedy cried out, gaining their attention. So, what, are we just special visitors? You know what, forget it. I'm out, and with that, he threw his hat on the ground and stormed out, ignoring Green Arrow's protests against it. He was on his way to chase him, but Batman put his hand on Arrow's shoulder. Let him go, he said, he needs time. And considering the way she behaved, he couldn't been able to attend. Green Arrow sighed in submission, knowing he's right. Wait, attend what, my king? Aqualad asked with a calm, but curious expression. His question was followed by Robin. Yeah, what were you gonna have us do? And who are these 2? Kid Flash asked loudly. These 2 are. These 2 are. Team Fishcake. The shorter one yelled out, pulling out her signature scissors, before pulling them apart as they increased in size, turning into meter-low blades that looks like 2 pieces of a broken pair of scissors. Before anything can say anything, she continues her introduction. Smoke surrounds her. From the heart of Themyscira to the peak of Mt. Myoboku, I am the #1 Amazon student of Naruto Uzumaki. RYUUUKOOOO. She posed with both blades in her hand, panting loudly as the people in the room look at her with a stupefied expression except her friend, who looked at her annoyed. Oh, and Mirai here is #2 inches. Hey, you may have raw strength and speed in advantage, but I'm smarter and more versatile. You don't speak words when you're fighting. It's not like I monologue in my fights. Besides, we're Team Maelstrom, not Fishcake. It's the same thing. Ahem. Batman cleared his voice, gaining their attention. They glared for a minute, for they turned back to the others in the room. Anyways, we are representing our homeland, where our exams will be taken. I'm sorry, exams? Robin asked with his general attitude increasing. The others weren't faring any better. Yeah, the Chunin exams, where our best of the young generation goes through multiple testings based off of real-life situations and seeing how we fare against them and if we're ready for the next step. What? We have to take a flipping test first. Kid Flash cried out, hasn't fighting alongside you for years enough? But before anything else can be said, Superman appears on a screen. Batman, Cadmus has been caught in a fire. I suggest looking into it as soon as possible. Zatara to Justice League, Zatara interrupted with urgency in his voice. Wotan is in the progress of blocking out the sun. Superman looks to Zatara's screen, then back to Batman. It's only a small fire. All available members will be given the coordinates. Coordinates received, he replied. Before turning to the young protégés, stay put. We will discuss more when we return. What do you mean? I am sure that we can deal with the fire in Cadmus, Aqualad stated calmly with a reasoning tone. Aquaman spoke up. You guys aren't ready. Since when? Kid asked him. Before his own mentor answered him, he means you're not ready to be a team. You'll get your chance soon enough. And with that, they left to deal with Woden, leaving the apprentices with the two females. Not ready, not ready, Robin shouted out. Does years of working with him not prove enough? My mentor, Aqualad softly said. My king, I thought he trusted me. Mirai looked awkwardly at the group and decided to try to calm them down. Now let's all relax, she stated, trying to diffuse them all. Gaining the attention of the others, including Ryoko, we can talk about this reasonably. How about we head to the HQ and vent out in the tri? Wait a minute, Robin cut her off. What do you mean as in, HQ? Isn't this the HQ? Mirai mentally cursed for her slip-up, but before she could correct herself, Ryoko spoke up. Nope, we are in the pit stop to the real one in the Watchtower satellite. I do believe you were gonna go. But due to the recent events, we had to stop right before you went. We came down mainly because we were wondering what was taking you so long. She said it rather impassively. But the sidekicks took it the wrong way. Their HQ is in space. Why haven't we heard of this before? Kid outcried, followed by Robin. Better question is, why didn't we leave with Speedy? Which made the other two silent. Because that would ruin your career. Mirai cried out as if it was obvious, causing them to turn to her as she continued. We all are here because we are acknowledged for our skills and abilities that could possibly take part in protecting humanity. We can't let such an opportunity go to waste. As she finished, Ryoko continued where she left off. Yeah, she's got a point. Do you really think bitching about this will get them to turn their heads? Even I have to be patient. I have to wait for half a year for the Chunin exam, and even longer to get myself ready. Like we care what you have to say. Kid blurted out, you shouldn't even be here. This was supposed to be the day we become members of the league. But now, we have to wait even longer. And what's worse, you just pop out of nowhere like this is an average occurrence for you. We have worked our asses off to get here. Robin said with a pissed off expression, and what have you done? Get permission from Daddy to pick you, at that. Mirai punched him in the gut before sucker punching him in the face. He flew a few meters away before slamming on the wall. Don't you ever badmouth my dad again, she yelled with glassy eyes. Before she can continue, Ryoko grabbed her by the arms and held her back from murdering the boy wonder. I have trained to the bone every night and day for my dad. So I can be like him and care for my mom. I have trained till I dropped and proved my worth. So don't tell me what I can or can't do. Robin looked at her shocked while holding his jaw. He was not expecting that for an answer. But before he can say anything, she storms off to the couch to sit down with Ryoko. The room stayed silent, until Aqualad spoke up. What is Cadmus? The others looked at him curiously. Before pondering on the question themselves, Robin gained a mischievous look in his eyes. I don't know, but I can find out. He pulls out a hologram on his wrist before hacking the system. Dude, seriously, how are you doing that? Kid asked, gaining an amused expression from Robin. The same system in the Batcave. I wonder how long it took for you to learn that. Must have been a couple hours because you obviously lack the patience to wait any longer. Mirai mumbled loud enough for everyone to hear, but they all chose to ignore it. Appears to be a base for organic experimentation, but that's it. I'm pretty sure there's more to this though. I guess it's best we check it out. Kid Flash said, it'll be poetic justice. And they're all about justice. Aqualad spoke up his opinion. Are you sure this is a good idea? They said to stay put. This only got an incredulous look from the other two. Man, they didn't even tell us about the real HQ in space. What do we have to lose? Your life, Mirai heatedly stated. Your career, Aqualad stated. It could happen. Anyway, Robin stated, trying to get back on topic. We might not get another chance at this again. Aqualad looked at the other two, before giving in and deciding to go with them. Robin then looked to the two females. How a boo. Go fuck off. Mirai interrupted, which caused him to flinch. Maybe bringing up her dad was a bad move. Seeing that they weren't gonna change their mind, he gave in. Fine. Let's go guys. And with that, the 3 apprentices went out and left, leaving the 2 girls alone. Ryuko looked at her friend with a worried expression. You okay? Sigh, yeah, I'm fine. She replied, it's just, I want to be just like him. He died before I was even born and I never actually saw his face in person before. How can I be like him? Even though I never knew what he was like in person. She looked at her friend with a sad expression. They both lost their fathers to the evil of their worlds. All depended on each other to make their sensei proud and live up to him. Hey, don't worry, I got you. And how about we head back to Japan and eat with Mako's family? I bet it will take your mind off of the current situation. Marawi gave her a small smile, thankful for her being there for her. She nodded and she began to walk to the Zeta tubes before pulling out her cell and dialing a number. Hey, Annie, it's Mirai. Nah, we're fine. I was just wondering if you could head to this Cadmus place to back up a couple guys going off of protocol. Yes, they're their apprentices. Well, I would, but one brought up my dad and now I feel out of it. Oh, thank you so much. Me and Ryuko are heading to Mako's back in Japan. Drop by when you're done. Yes, I'll pick up donuts on the way there. Alright, bye. She hanged up before looking to her friend. Alright, Annie's got their backs as backup. We need to get donuts though. Alright, to the donuts. Quote, most 17-year-olds would be in school, whoa, reading about grades and talking about cute boys, enjoying their innocence. Annie was not like most girls. Standing at 5 feet, she wore a short leather jacket that stopped at her ribcage. Underneath is a simple white hoodie and she wore basic khakis with basic white tennis shoes. She had light blue eyes and a healthy skin tone that complemented her petite form. She had her short blonde hair down, reaching her neck. She held an impassive stance, unlike her teammates. She looked as if she couldn't give a damn about whatever happened in the world. Annie was minding her own business as she walked on the streets of Washington, D.C. Her and her 2 teammates were going to pick up the other apprentices with them today as they returned to their home. However, although she knew that the apprentices lacked the maturity to get a task done, instead of whining like a sidekick, they should be calm, relaxed, patient, and cooperative if they want to get anywhere. Aqualad, she can tolerate. He seemed to get the idea that things won't just be handed to them. He works and works hard while being respectful and calm about most situations. He thinks and acts alongside others. A good trait to have. But he may be following a bit too much. As important as it is to care for others' opinion, he should try to express his own opinion every now and then. But overall, he wasn't half bad. Robin was somewhat the same, albeit a bit mischievous and immature. She would say that he's just too young, but that would count for all of them. He has been an apprentice to Batman for several years longer than the others. You would think that although not gaining the man's intensity or trust issues, but at least his maturity. Add the fact that he jumps in without the consideration of his teammates is not a good factor to have in a team. Kid Flash was just annoying. He was cocky, hard-headed, and blamed others for his mistakes. He's simple-minded, not willing to think outside the box, and thinks he's the greatest thing that ever hit the earth. Or so he showed to be. She can tell that he's a good person by heart and can get along with generally anyone, as long as they are close. All he needs to do is show people his true nature and get off his high horse and maybe, she might slightly consider him as a good teammate. And finally is Red Arrow, who she didn't like one bit. Demanding, rude, and acting as if he deserves the sun and the moon but doesn't get it because fate is cruel. In her eyes, he may be the oldest, but he's the biggest child. She actually made a bet with Ryuko that he would throw a hissy it for not joining the league immediately. She would have to wait for them to either call her or tell her what was happening for that though. She was getting 50 ryo in that bet. A ryo is equivalent to 10 yen. So it's actually close to American currency. But besides that, these guys somewhat disappointed her. If they were in the elemental nations before the war, they would be killed off or cut in half so people can take their abilities. It was insulting that her sensei, the strongest shinobi in history, would have to waste his time with such people. When he trained her, he made sure that she would be able to fend for herself and her friends and so that she can work with anyone in any situation. And even with her special abilities, he accepted her into the village as his student and his daughter by the leaf. These others have yet to show the trust, respect, and dedication to their teachers like her and her team does. Her phone started playing Gurren no Yumiya, being her ringtone. Get it? She picks it up and hears Mirai on the other phone. Mirai, are you alright? You sound upset. Oh, don't tell me it's them. Sigh. Okay. But don't worry about it, I'll take care of it and might even give Robin a little something that will stop his chirping. Alright, sounds fine, but bring donuts. I haven't had any donuts today, thank you. I will see you at 7. Annie sighed in frustration. These guys just keep giving her stuff to add in her list. Now she'll have to save their asses then beat the shit out of the walking traffic light for badmouthing Asuma-san. She never met him, like her friends. But she knows how great of a man is due to playing shogi with Shikamaru Taiko. He always fought for the king, something that varies for each person. He explained to her that when someone has a king to protect, you must put your whole being and soul in order to protect that king. That lesson moved her, and made her want to protect those precious to her increase thousandfold. So yeah, Robin's gonna get a shitload of pain from her. Cadmus. Sub-level 52. What do you want? Kid Flash asked in a freaked out voice in his cell. Quit staring, you're freaking us out. KF. Robin called out to him, in his own cell. How about we not tick off the guy who could fry us with one look? After finding out about the sub-levels in the building, Robin hacked the elevator and went straight to the final level, in search of Kerr. Only to find Superboy, an organic clone of Superman made to deal with him, should he ever become a threat. When they released him, he went on a rampage and knocked them all out. Aqualad looked to him from his cell. We only sought to help you. Yeah, Kid interrupted, we save you, and you turn on us. How's that for gratification, Kid? Aqualad spoke up, I believe our new friend was not in control of his actions. What if I wasn't? Superboy asked in an uncertain voice, not sure if he was or wasn't. He didn't know why, but these people are making him somewhat doubtful to his loyalty. He can talk, Kid asked in complete surprise. Yes he can, Superboy said with a heated glare pointed at KF. Not like I said it. Everyone turned back to Superboy as Aqualad continued. The G-Gnomes taught you telepathically, did they not? They taught me much, Superboy replied. I can read, write. He paused, trying to remember what else he learned. I know the names of things. Robin then interrupted, but have you seen them? Have they ever let you see the sky or the sun? Images are implanted in my mind, but no, I have not seen them, Superboy conceded. Do you know what you are? Asked Aqualad. Who you are? I am the Superboy, said the clone, standing up straight, happy he finally had an answer he could confidently give. A genomorph, a clone created from the DNA of the Superman. Created to replace him should he perish, to destroy him should he turn from the light. To be like Superman is a noble aspiration, said Aqualad, but like Superman, you deserve a life of your own. Beyond that solar suit, beyond your pod, beyond Cadmus. I live because of Cadmus. Snapped Superboy angrily, it is my home. Your home is a test tube, Robin countered dryly, we can show you the sun. I'm pretty sure it's after midnight, but we can totally show you the moon, interjected Kid Flash. We can show you, introduce you, to Superman, offered Aqualad gently. For a moment, Superboy's resolve wavered, his face showed a glimpse of hope, of eagerness to meet his biological father. I'm afraid they offer you empty promises, said a voice. Everyone's attention was drawn to the far wall, where a door slid open to reveal Guardian and a scientist in a white lab coat, G-Gnomes on both of their shoulders. They'll be a little too busy to show you to Superman, said the scientist as they strolled in. Activate the cloning process. Guardian walked over to the computer and began initiating the sequence. Pass, called Robin, Batcave's crowded enough. The scientist rolled his eyes. And get the weapon back in its pod. Guardian went to place his hand on the clone's shoulder, but he slightly pulled back in hesitation, making drive. Desmond chuckled in response. Oh, don't start thinking now. A small G-Gnome jumped on Superboy's shoulder and its horns glowed red. Superboy then stood up straight and lost all control and emotions in his eyes. See, you're not a real boy. You're a weapon, he said with a smirk, and you belong to me. Well, to Cadmus, same thing. Now get back to your pod. The sidekicks looked in despair as Superboy slowly walked away. As Superboy continued to walk down the hall with the genome controlling his mind, he missed the small person sneak up behind him. When the genome turned around, it couldn't see the imposter in time before its life left its body. Superboy snapped up in surprise, not feeling the mental control on him anymore. He turned around only to see a small girl with a green hood and a sword in each hand. The sword itself looked oddly like a prolonged razor, and she also had two large metal containers that had more of those razor blades, but without the handle. They probably clipped on when one broke, he assumed. He looked at the girl and immediately went into a sloppy stance. What are you doing here? She looked at him impassively as she stared at his form. Durable and can tank most damage, but has no initial fighting style or skill to use whatsoever, Annie thought, but that can grow over time. He doesn't seem to be controlling or in control of anything in particular. This boy needs guidance. She took a step closer, which caused Superboy to react and throw the punch, only for her to move to the side and pull his punch forward, causing him to stumble forward. Before he can regain his footing, Annie grabbed his shirt and swept his legs with such speed that he was on his back while his feet hanged above him. What she did to Ren. Superboy was frozen in shock. What the hell just happened? He looked up, only to see the girl sitting right in front of him with her legs crossed. He clumsily got back up, stumbling in the process, before looking at her again with a steely glare and preparing another attack. I do not wish to be hostile, she stated, stopping him in his tracks. I was sent by my teammate to help the sidekicks who went on their own whim and broke protocol. I am simply here for them. Not you. I have no reason to fight you. Her voice could make the Ice Age green with envy. She permitted no emotions to be seen or heard, not allowing any slip-ups in her speech. Not revealing anything that could compromise her. He looked at her with suspicion, only for him to grow suspicion when her arms started to show crystals forming around them. If you don't, then prepare for me to respond accordingly. Superboy went back into a stance and charged again, only for her to dive down and kick him with her foot that she quickly crystallized. Surprisingly, that kick hurt. A lot. He keeled over in pain as he tried to regain the breath that has just been kicked out of him. He looked over and glared at her with pure fury. Seeing her in a boxing stance, he stood up, ready to unleash his fury. Until his super hearing makes him stop. Superboy winced and looked at his feet. I can hear the others, he said, they're in pain. Annie looked to him curiously, before asking, do you mean the three sidekicks? Superboy looks at her in confusion, before replying, I don't know what they call themselves, but I think they're heroes. Annie looked at him with a blank stare, before replying, they have yet to show any traits that don't make them a sidekick and makes them a full-out hero. So I will call them what I see them as. A couple of sidekicks who were too bus. Why complaining and bickering to put reality into consideration? And it can hurt others. Superboy looks at her and slightly shivers when he sees the rage in her eyes. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And what about you? She asked, gaining his attention. Maybe, she thought, maybe he has his king to defend. What do you mean? He asked as she looked at him. What do you have to fight for? What is your king? I have no king. He yelled, in fury. He's fighting for his freedom, not for someone to put him under their thumb. BTU. She didn't waver. A king isn't automatically a leader. It could be a friend, or your family, or something you simply hold precious. At that, he calmed down and began to listen. My teacher taught me that when you truly hold something precious, that is when you become strong. Now let's go get them, she ordered, which made him mumble under his breath about not taking orders. But he had a thoughtful look on his face. He truly needed that. He truly needed something precious for him to care for. As they continue their way there, they get in the way of several genomes. She turns to Superboy and spoke, I will keep them busy. While you release them and we can all leave. Superboy nodded and went on. One of the bigger ones went to block his path, but was intervened by one of his legs being cut off. Superboy went into the chamber where the others were being held and saw Dr. Desmond. The doctor in questioning demanded an explanation from Superboy, only to gain a blow to the head from the Boy of Steel. Don't give me orders, the young clone was telling G the scientist as the others quickly ran away. You here to help us or fry us? Asked Kid Flash as Superboy approached their pods. The Kryptonian narrowed his eyes for a moment in concentration. It looks like I don't have heat vision, he said after a moment, so I guess helping is my only option. There was a hiss as Robin's shackles fell away and his pod opened. Finally, he groaned as He leapt to the ground and rubbed his wrists. Lucky Batman wasn't here. He'd have my head for taking so long. Seriously, that's what you're worried about? Asked Kid Flash as Robin jumped up to help him out of his pod. The whole league will have our heads after tonight. Robin ignored him as he looked to Superboy. Superboy, can you get Aqualad? Don't you give me orders either, snapped Superboy as he climbed up to Aqualad. He crumpled the shackles in his hand and helped the Atlantean to the ground. Thank you. It's what Superman would have done. You'll never get out of here, cried Drive. Desmond as his former captives ran by him. I'll have you all in pods by morning. That guy is not whelmed, said Robin as he turned back. Not whelmed at all. What is it with you and this whelmed thing? Asked Kid Flash as Robin tossed explosive shuriken at the pods, blowing away all usable traces of their DNA. As they ran down the halls of the lower levels of Cadmus, the pustules on the walls began to glow. Robin glanced behind them and saw some of the dog genomes being birthed from the growths. He grit his teeth in a grimace and picked up the pace. But Superboy started looking in worry. Where was the small girl? The elevator, shouted Aqualad, pointing ahead. As he spoke, several massive genomes appeared on either side of the elevator and moved forward to block the team. As one, they skidded to a halt just in time to keep from getting crushed underfoot. Aqualad, Robin, and Kid Flash ducked around the giant beasts, but Superboy let loose a primal roar and engaged them head-on. He tossed them around like playthings, but his roughhousing made the walls and ceiling shake. Superboy, shouted Aqualad, the goal is escape. Not to bury ourselves. You want escape, demanded Superboy with a roar of anger. His eyes were wide with berserker rage. Not because they were annoying him, but because the girl who helped him see the bigger picture was nowhere to be found, and he really didn't like to think of the worst scenario at the moment. He burrowed through the genomes out of fury before clearing a path for everyone. They all jumped in the elevator as Superboy tore clean through the wall climbing up. Not giving the fact that he can't fly a second thought, he continued up with the others before another elevator comes up. Guys, Robin called out, this is gonna have to be our exit. Annie was actually enjoying herself. After ridding herself of the green cloak, she was using her chakra and omnidirectional gear to jump and zip through the genomes, cutting them up as she went. She knew she would have to stop soon, but this is literally the most fun she has had since her and her team has got here. It was until she looked at her watch to see it was 6:30. The second she saw the time, she froze. If it's 6:30, then that means that she has less than 30 minutes to get to a Zeta tube to get to Japan. If she didn't, then she would not make it to Mako's house to have dinner with her team. Which means they would eat without her, which includes her. Ellipsis. She bit down on her hand hard. Superboy nodded to the humanoid. I choose freedom, he said. The humanoid nodded and the others slowly woke up. Guardian, asked Aqualad, wondering if the brainwashed superhero would stop them. Go, he said firmly, I'll handle Desmond. I think not. Genomes fled the hallway in a stampede as Dr. Desmond walked out of the shadows of the hallway. Project Blockbuster will give me the power to restore order to Cadmus, he declared, lifting up a vial of blue liquid. Before anyone could react, he tossed the vial back into his mouth, swallowing the solution. Immediately, he doubled over in pain and began to moan mournfully. As everyone watched with wide eyes, Desmond D's clothes ripped apart as his muscles doubled in size. His joints cracked violently with his body undergoing severe spontaneous transformation. His skin started to rip, revealing a layer of solid rock underneath it. He stood up and roared with his new power, standing a good 10 feet tall. Well, I'll say this for him, said Kid Flash, I didn't see that coming. Everyone back, called Guardian as he charged the behemoth. Before he could even lay a finger on the beast, he was backhanded against the wall and slid to the floor unconscious. Superboy growled and tackled what had once been a scientist, and they began to trade punches. The beast gave a ferocious uppercut which sent Superboy through the ceiling and into the Cadmus lobby. With a screech of rage, the monster followed him. "You think Lab Coat planned to do that?" asked Kid Flash as they gathered under the hole. "I doubt he is planning anything anymore," replied Aqualad grimly. But before anyone could do anything, a huge fleshy and that was at least 2 meters long, tore through the floor, grabbing Drive. Desmond. The group of young heroes also questioned this giant hand's purpose, until another hand came up holding the platform they were all standing on. They all shook around, trying to regain their balance, until they saw what caught them. Standing at 15 meters was a giant female humanoid with no clothing and no genitals. The giant had blonde hair and sky blue eyes and seemed to be crystallizing its back. They all look upon this giant behemoth in shock and fear, except Superboy. The second she saw her eyes, he knew this was the little girl, except she isn't little now. With her back fully crystallized, she slammed straight into the ceiling, immediately breaking it, and reaching the surface. She turned her right and that contained Blockbuster into a ball of pure crystal before sprinting straight towards the Hall of Justice. The sidekicks held on for dear life, trying not to fall or barf, not even knowing what was happening. And before they knew it, they were right in front of the hall. Too impatient to wait a second, she slammed her hand into the hall, breaking clean through it, before turning her other hand into a crystal prison cell. After doing so, the neck was cut open as Annie exited her Titan form. She immediately went to the crystal prison and reached to Robin, slamming his head on the bars. "Hey, what are you doing?" Kid called out, preparing to fight, which the others followed, only for Superboy to stop them. "Wait," he calls out, gaining their attention. "She's a friend. She told me she was sent by her teammate to find you guys." "What teammate?" Robin asked, trying to remember who he met just today. "Oh yeah, the girl whose father he insulted. This is her teammate." Ellipsis. "Fuck. Hey," he said nervously. Bang. Asterisk. Robin flew back in pain as the female punched him so hard, you could see her fist caving into his face. And with that she ran to the Zeta tubes, ignoring the confused looks she got from the people behind her. "I only have 2 minutes until 7. She thought urgently. She stood in front of the Zeta tube muttering to herself, waiting for the scanner to finish scanning. Recognized. Annie Lenhart. CO3. Just when she was going to enter, Batman immediately exited to Zeta tubes, looking down at her. "You're going to have to explain yourself." And Annie looked torn as more of the Justice League entered the hall. Batman grabbed her by the hoodie and dragged her back, ignoring her, crying out for her precious "My donuts, Annie-chan. It's so nice to see you." Mako screamed to Annie, who just came into the Menkenshoku residence. Annie sighed. Stupid Batman's lecture getting into the way of her donuts. She looked to the hyper girl and asked her, trying to hide her excitement, "Where are the donuts?" Mako Menkenshoku was a small petite girl with a white and blue sailor uniform. She had brown hair in a bowl cut, brown eyes, and a roundish head. She didn't have many defining features that made her appearance stand out, but her personality had that in spades. Mako was a very hyper and uplifting individual, who provided her friends comic relief and comfort. Not that she can't hold her own. She's a tank and not even a brawl with Gamagori can put her down, but she prefers the role of moral support and enjoys her life in the background. When she heard her friend ask about her favorite snack, she ran straight to the fridge and pulled out a box and brought it to Annie. "Here you go. I know you like them cold, so I put them in the fridge. Although, it seems weird to keep them cold. Aren't they made hot?" Annie paid little mind to the young girl's ranting. She was just too busy savoring the taste of the blueberry cake donut. They were assigned to keep fake ID entities in the appearance of sophomores for Honoji Academy, where Ryuko's sister, Satsuki, was the head of the student body and the secret general of the specialized military unit who research and practice the usage of life fibers. She entrusted Mako, a 2-star student, to familiarize them with the new city and school. She also entrusted Mako with the truth behind their business here. She did is because Satsuki knows how Mako specializes in conversation. Mako can easily turn the tables of any situation and create a false conversation of a made-up topic that is completely irrelevant to any topic without people even noticing. She can also come up with ingenious excuses for any situation despite whatever position she's in. She's shameless, ingenious, and fearless, perfect person to trust with the knowledge to a secret agenda. Although Mako was just here to keep a low profile for them all, they all enjoyed her company and the hospitality of her family. With the exception of the father, the brother, and the dog. They can all burn in hell. Perverted bastards. Annie and Mako continued to the dining room where the rest of the Menkenshoku family was messily eating croquettes with the other 2 members of her team. So how are you gonna face Satsuki this time? Mataro asked Ryoko, who grinned at the question. Beat her face in, just like any fight, she stated as if it was the clearest answer in the world. She did have exclusive training with the Amazons, though, Tsukuyo. Mako's mother included, but Ryoko had none of it. I've been trained by Naruto-sensei. Shinobi beats Amazon every time. Just because Naruto-sensei won against Diana Dono doesn't mean all shinobis are above Amazons. Mirai stated with a teasing smirk, just like your last fight against Satsuki. Ryoko pouted at her friends. It was a draw, damn it. Hey, guys, Annie introduced, getting them out of their conversation and acknowledging her existence. They all sweat dropped when they all saw the empty donut box. Didn't she just get here? Mako obviously didn't notice this as she went to support Ryoko. Ryoko-chan. Don't worry about fighting Satsuki. Ryoko smiled at that, at least someone backed her up. Maybe she'll go easy on you. Ryoko face faulted and crawled in the corner with a rain cloud over her head. Stupid, unsupportive friends, she muttered, making everyone look at her in deadpan. Why? Oh, you were the one who brought it up. They all synchronized, but Ryoko ignored them. As Ryoko continued moping, Mirai looked to her other friend before asking her, how did it go? Annie sighed before explaining the events that occurred. So now they are a team. And they're currently at Mount Justice. And Batman's a pedophile. Ellipsis. Nanny. Everyone looked to Mako in a stupefied expression, sans Ryoko, who was moping, and Annie, who looked at her friend in an appearance that crossed annoyed and bored. Where did you get that bullshit of an idea? Annie asked. A lot of kids in tights, wears dark clothing. And a lot of gadgets for everything. Mako stated, as if it was the clearest thing in the world. That Dosen. I see what you mean. Annie interrupted Mirai's correction. She knew that the Batman was all good intentions and did everything for humanity, but he made her late for donuts. You don't get in the way of Team Maelstrom's food. Mirai's dango, Ryuko's croquettes and Lemon's Annie's donuts. And Sensei's ramen. Once Diana accidentally fell into the Ichiraku ramen shop, and when Sensei found out, he practically punched her halfway through the continent. I will make an omake of this one day. Then I must tell Satsuki-sama. Mako explained in a hurried expression. No need, a female stated. Everyone looked to the entrance and saw none other than Satsuki Kuryuin, the sister of Ryoko and head of Honoji Academy. Satsuki stood at 5 feet 6 inches, towering over the rest of the females, with long black hair and dark blue eyes that complement her pale complexion. She wore a regal white and blue sailor uniform with several designs, accessories, and medals that made her appear as a seasoned general. Unlike the other individuals, she was organized, cunning, and closely attentive to detail. She took business seriously and never played around. She is the boss for a reason. But above all, she was trained under Wonder Woman herself, while Ryoko was trained by the Hokage. They mainly fight because their teachers are too destructive in their rounds. So, they battle in their stead. However, Satsuki was in the winning side, being 17-12. Not only that, but she already passed the Chunin exams 2 years ago. She had far more training and skill, while Ryoko had greater power and versatility. Right now, Satsuki looked to them before Mako stood up and saluted, Satsuki-sama. Mako Menkenshoku, representative and president of Fight Club and 2-star student at your service. Satsuki looked to her before turning to the rest of them. It seems that you have all met the students of this world's champions. Which made Mirai look to her. Yeah, snobby bastards trying to act high and mighty. Anyone who thinks we'd let them take the exams is completely stupid. I need you to take them to the exams. Ellipsis. Looks like the stupidity has caught on you too. Konohagakure. Is it the real you, or is it just another clone? Boruto said to the man in front of him in an irritate tone as he and his team stood in front of the Hokage. Boruto stood at 5 feet exactly with mid-length sunny blonde hair, blue eyes, and tan skin. On his face bore 2 horizontal lines adorning each cheek, making it appear like whiskers. He wore a white shirt under a black sweater with reddish-purple color on the inside along with black pants. He looked annoyed and cut back, not really putting any thought or care about his life as a shinobi. Only caring about the way he appears when he does the job, along with looking down upon the Hokage name. Beside him was a young girl standing at 4 feet 11 inches with short black hair that reached her shoulder, eyes as black as coal, and red glasses. She wore a red battle dress with shorts underneath to keep herself decent. On her back was a fan-like symbol, identifying her as an Uchiha. This was Sarada Uchiha, and unlike her teammate, she looked upon the Hokage with admiration and resolve, hoping to live up to his and her father's name as the Leaf's second female Hokage. Caring and protecting the Leaf as a parent to a child. And finally, Mitsuki, a pale light blue-haired boy with light amber eyes. He wore a light blue haori with chain mail underneath. Unlike the other two, appearance and goals meant little to him. All he cares about is his duty and son. They all had their attention directed to the man in front of them. Standing at 6 feet was a peach-skinned man with short blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 horizontal lines adorning each cheek. The man wore an orange jacket with black rings on the hem and sleeves with black pants. Over it, he wore a white haori with red flames on the hem. On the back of his jacket was a red spiral, identifying him as an Uzumaki. This was the legendary 7th Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki. The strongest shinobi in recorded history. Of course it's the real me. I don't usually leave a clone here, so I can deal with the more pressing matters firsthand. But spending time with your family isn't that big of an issue, is it? He snapped at his father, making him sigh in exhaustion. After a life of constant conflict, Naruto and the other villages formed the Allied Shinobi Forces, a united military force that brings together all the world's nations to stand against an enemy greater than themselves. This agreement caused a bond to forge between nations as the desire for peace began to overrule the acts and desires of hatred and vengeance, which gave them the peace for over 16 years. However, he wasn't the strongest for nothing. He constantly trains himself and spars with the other Hokages whenever he gets the chance to keep in shape. And when he's lucky, he can spar with Sasuke or Diana to truly push himself. The problem, however, is that he has duties to all the nations and everyone who lives under the Shinobi Alliance, ensuring the peace doesn't fall apart. However, this leaves problems with his 2 children, Boruto and Himawari Uzumaki. They were his precious flesh and blood, and he would give up his life for them, but as Hokage, he can't always be there for them, even when he wants to, more than anything. He usually has to trust his sensei and his children's godfather, Kakashi, to watch over them as he cares for his duties. Himawari is too young and innocent to fully comprehend the issue of the situation, but Boruto is already a teen and has begun his career as a shinobi. And he has seen the problem, but only his side, which worries Naruto. Although he understands his problem with him being Hokage, he fails to see the point behind Hokage and its importance. As Hokage, he isn't just duty-bound to his own blood, but to the entire village and the embodiment of peace. As much as he would love to spend time with his family, he must respond to his responsibilities as a Hokage, not just a father. He hopes his son can see it too. Boruto, we have been through this multiple times. Boruto groaned at that. No, you have been over it multiple times. I've only been able to listen to your weak excuses. They aren't excuses. They are my responsibilities as Hokage. Just as you're tied to your duties as a shinobi. My responsibilities aren't tearing my family apart, but they will carve a path to your future, in which your family lives in. My family is here, right in front of me, right now, Boruto yelled. But before anything can be said, Sarada intervened. Boruto, you are getting out of hand there. Boruto looked to her in shock. What, you're taking his side now? There isn't a side to take. Boruto, He is doing his job as a Hokage to keep our lifestyles peaceful and rid of conflict. He's caring for the entire world. You can't act selfish about what he does for your sake." Boruto grew silent, not having a rebuttal for her words. Before anything else can be said, the door was knocked. Boruto scoffed and looked away in anger, as Naruto let the person in, knowing Boruto wasn't going to add any more. To his surprise and delight, it was his genin team, Team Maelstrom Fists. He doesn't really care about the name, along with a few members of the Hokage Academy and several oddly dressed individuals. Already knowing what they were here for, Naruto looked to Team 7 and their sensei, Konohamaru, and gave them a stern look. The mission details will be discussed later, there are more pressing issues at the moment. And Boruto, he looked back to his father. "I will speak to you later tonight, after Himawari's birthday. You are dismissed." They all left, with Boruto letting out another scoff as he looked away in anger and stormed off. After the exit of the team, Naruto to look to the children in front of him. He was given a progress report from Mirai 3 days prior to their arrival and, to be honest, he was somewhat disappointed with what he heard. Complaining about their position, breaking protocol for selfish, unreasonable purposes, jumping to conclusions. Yet they want to be at the top. Even he knew better than that, and he was a dumbass when he was their age. But they can't be as naive as he was, right? Namaste mi amigo. Ellipsis. 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 Scratch that, they're hopeless. What if Naruto was son of Wonder Woman of different dimension?